My fiancée texted, "We need a break, don't contact me." I replied, "All right." Then I quietly canceled every wedding booking in my name. Weeks later, she called ready to resume, but found out our venue and vendors had already been rebooked. The panic in her voice was priceless. I, 32 male, work as a project manager, which is less a job and more a fundamental state of being. My life is spreadsheets, timelines, and risk mitigation. For the past 4 years, my main project was my relationship with my fiancée, Clara, 30. The wedding, a massive, expensive affair scheduled for the autumn, was the final, most complex phase, largely managed by Clara and her overbearing mother, Genevieve. I was the silent partner who signed the checks. Lately, an unnerving static had filled the air. Clara was obsessed with the wedding's details but seemed disconnected from the marriage. I dismissed it as pre-wedding jitters. That was my first miscalculation. A month ago, a text from her landed like a tactical strike. "Clara, hey, I feel overwhelmed with everything. The wedding, us, all of it. I need a break, a real one. To clear my head and make sure this is what I really want. Don't contact me. I'll reach out when I'm ready to talk." It wasn't a request for space. It was a unilateral suspension of our life together, delivered via text. She was putting me on a shelf while she decided if I was still the accessory she wanted. My project manager brain took over. When a primary stakeholder pulls out indefinitely, you don't pause the project. You dissolve the contracts to mitigate damage. I texted back a 2-word reply. Me alright. Radio silence, just as she'd requested. I decided to give her the break she wanted. A permanent one. That evening, I opened our monstrous wedding binder and created a new spreadsheet. Project dissolution. The first call was to the venue, the Grand Trianon Hotel. The non-refundable $15,000 deposit was the biggest hit. I spoke to the coordinator, Beatrice. Me, "Hi Beatrice, it's Leo. We have the Hawthorne wedding booked for October 12th. I'm calling to cancel." I was calm and direct. I told her I understood the deposit was forfeit per our contract and just needed to terminate the agreement. She was surprised by my lack of drama and explained that if they rebooked the date, their policy was to refund 75% of the deposit. I thanked her and told her to send the paperwork. One down. I spent the rest of the day methodically dismantling the wedding. The photographer, Julian, had a $5,000 deposit. He was a good guy. He said if he booked the date, he'd send half back as a professional courtesy. The caterer kept the $3,000 tasting deposit. The florist kept a $2,500 deposit. The string quartet, $1,000. Each call was the same, calm, polite, final. By Friday, every contract in my name was terminated. The total immediate, non-refundable loss was just over $12,000. It was a sickening amount to burn, but infinitely better than waiting like a fool while tens of thousands more were on the line. The final piece was my grandmother's engagement ring. It was a family heirloom, and I wasn't about to let it become a pawn in this game. I went to the bank and put it in a safe deposit box. The next few weeks were strange. I lived in our shared apartment, surrounded by her things, a museum of a dead relationship. When friends asked, I just said, "Planning is on hold." Last night, exactly 4 weeks after her text, she called. I let it go to voicemail. A text followed. "Clara, I'm ready to talk. I've had time to think and I've missed you like crazy. I know we can work this out. I'm ready to resume planning. Call me." The sheer confidence that I was just a paused program waiting for her to hit play was astounding. I called her back. Her voice was breezy. "Leo, I was so happy to see your name pop up. Look, I was a mess, totally stressed. I just needed to get my head straight. I'm better now and I'm ready to jump back in. We need to schedule the menu tasting. My mother is breathing down my neck." "There's no tasting to schedule, Clara. What do you mean? Don't be difficult, Leo." The contract with the caterer was terminated, just like the contract with the hotel, and the photographer, and the florist. The silence on her end was heavy. "What are you talking about? Is this a joke?" Me, "No joke. You said you needed a break and requested no contact. A wedding requires total commitment. When you pulled out, I dissolved the project. All the bookings are canceled." Her voice went tight with panic. You canceled the Grand Trianon? Without talking to me? You explicitly told me not to contact you." "That didn't mean cancel everything. It meant give me space. Leo, that was a $15,000 deposit. My mother's friends are all coming. Call them back. Call Beatrice right now and fix it. I can't. The date's been rebooked. A corporate client. Beatrice is sending me a check for a partial refund. A choked sob came through the phone. Booked? No, you're lying. I'm not. The Grand Trianon is gone, Clara. So is Julian, the photographer. A Saturday in October is a popular time. My dress, the bridesmaids. My mother is going to have a heart attack. You've ruined everything. You did this out of spite. Me, I did this out of logic. You don't get to put a person's life and hundreds of thousands of dollars in obligations on hold while you clear your head. That's not how partnership works. I'm coming over. We are going to fix this. My mother is coming with me. She hung up. The confrontation was just beginning. Update 1. About an hour after she hung up, my doorbell chimed. It was Clara and her mother, Genevieve, ready for war. I opened the door but left the chain on. Leo, open this door right now. What is the meaning of this childish stunt? Genevieve demanded. Let us in, Leo, Clara added, her voice sharp. We need to talk about how you're going to undo this mess. The entitlement was stunning. Not what happened, but fix what you broke. Me, there's nothing to talk about or fix. The decisions are made. This is semantics. You have deliberately and maliciously humiliated my daughter. The embarrassment. Me, that's a consequence of Clara unilaterally deciding to suspend our engagement via text. Clara's voice dripped with venom. You did this to punish me. I just needed a little air. Where did you go for air, Clara? You weren't at your sister's or your parents'. Where did you go for 4 weeks to clear your head? Color drained from her face. I went away with Isabel. To the coast. It was a lie, and the panic in her eyes proved it. Me. Look, this is pointless. I'm returning your parents' wedding contribution in full. Clara, text me a time to come get your things. I'll have them boxed up. Genevieve scoffed. She lives here. You can't just throw her out. Me. Her name isn't on the lease. She is no longer welcome. Send me a time. I started to close the door. Clara's hand shot out. My grandmother's ring, Leo. Give it to me. The audacity. Her grandmother's ring. Me. You mean my grandmother's ring. It belongs to my family. You proposed to me with it. It's mine. It's a gift. That's the law. It was a conditional gift, the condition being marriage. The marriage is not happening. You're not getting it. It's in a safe deposit box. I closed the door and slid the deadbolt. Their screaming outside about lawyers eventually faded. The next day, the dirty tricks began. Genevieve called my father, spinning a story about me having a psychotic break. Thankfully, my dad saw through it. After I explained the situation, the text, the 4 weeks of silence, the ring, he was firmly on my side. She put the relationship on ice and then got mad when you took her seriously? You did the right thing. Let me handle Genevieve. That was a relief, but Clara wasn't done. The next morning, I got an email from HR. An anonymous complaint had been filed through the ethics hotline, alleging my volatile personal situation was creating a hostile environment and questioning my fitness for managing high-value projects. It was a transparent, vicious attempt to damage my career. I immediately met with my director and HR. I calmly explained the situation. I am confident this is related to the abrupt end of my engagement. My former fiancé is not handling it well. I can assure you my personal situation will not affect my professional conduct. They appreciated my proactivity, and while they had to take it seriously, it was clear they suspected the complaint's origin. The attack, meant to destabilize me, only hardened my resolve. This was no longer a breakup, it was a campaign against me. She was about to find out that a project manager always has a contingency plan. Update 2. The entitlement went supernova. The HR complaint at my work fizzled out after I provided a basic, redacted timeline. My track record spoke for itself, and the complaint was dismissed as a malicious filing. But it showed Clara's scorched earth tactics. Next, they tried an ambush. I saw Genevieve's car on my street after coming home from the gym. I parked a block away and watched as Clara, Genevieve, and her father, Robert, knocked on my door for nearly an hour. They were trying to lay siege to my home. I just sat in my car and waited them out. The main event became the battle over assets. I wired her parents' entire wedding contribution back to them. The email I got in response was from Genevieve, using her husband's account. This is an unacceptable partial amount. We require reimbursement for our half of all forfeited deposits, and compensation for severe emotional distress and public humiliation. They were demanding I pay for the consequences of her daughter's actions. I forwarded it to Ms. Albright, the lawyer I'd retained. Her response was a masterpiece of legal shutdown, stating I owed them nothing, and any further demands would be considered harassment. Their next move was a new level of absurdity. A courier delivered an itemized invoice for $28,450. They had retroactively billed me for Clara's existence in my life. It included retroactive rent for my own apartment, a $5,000 interior design consultation fee for picking out a couch, and a $10,000 fee for emotional labor and household management. It was an attempt to reframe our relationship as a series of services for which I was now delinquent. The invoice ended with a demand for the heirloom engagement ring, which is valued at an estimated $40,000. Miss Albright laughed when I sent it to her. "This is what we call amateur hour," she said. "A scare tactic. We, however, are not going to ignore their actions." This is where my revenge turned from passive to active. We discovered that Clara had registered her new boutique event planning business using my apartment as the official business address, all without my knowledge. This was the leverage I needed. Miss Albright drafted a formal cease and desist letter. It was a thing of beauty. It demanded she immediately cease using my address for commercial purposes and provide proof of the change within 15 days. It notified her that all business mail arriving at my address would be marked "Returned to Sender." It reiterated the ring was a non-negotiable conditional gift and attached a GIA appraisal valuing it at a much more modest $14,000, accusing them of potentially fraudulent value inflation. Finally, it stated that their ridiculous invoice would be used as evidence of harassment and extortion, and gave her 10 days to schedule a supervised pickup of her belongings from the building's loading dock. The reaction was explosive. I got an email from Robert trying to be the peacemaker. "Leo, this has gone too far. The lawyers, the threats, just give back the ring and we can all move on." I replied, "Robert, the time for talking is over. Your daughter and wife have attempted to damage my career, laid siege to my home, and tried to extort me. The situation is in the hands of my lawyer. The terms in her letter are the only terms. The ring is not negotiable." He didn't write back. The pickup was scheduled for Saturday. I spent the weekend boxing up every last trace of her. As I sealed the last box, my apartment finally felt like my own again. The ghost was being exorcised. They started a war of attrition, thinking I would fold. They severely miscalculated. Final update: it's been 3 months. The war is over. The pickup day was an anticlimax. Clara didn't show. 2 movers in a beat-up van collected the 27 boxes of her life from my building's loading dock and drove away. She couldn't even face me. The legal threats stopped dead after my lawyer's letter. The combination of the fraud accusation, the threat over her business address, and documented harassment was enough to make them stand down. Bullies always fold when someone punches back with facts. The real consequences for them were social and financial. Genevieve and Clara had tried to save face by telling their social circle that I had gotten cold feet and left Clara at the altar. This backfired spectacularly. One of Genevieve's friends is married to a senior partner at my company. When her husband heard the story, he knew it didn't add up with the anonymous HR complaint and my professional handling of the fallout. He told his wife that from his perspective, I was the stable one. The word spread like wildfire through their circle, and they were exposed as liars. For people so obsessed with appearances, the public humiliation was devastating. Financially, they were wrecked. They were out the money for the non-refundable wedding dress, the 6 bridesmaids' dresses, the rehearsal dinner, and more. They lost tens of thousands, all because Clara couldn't have an adult conversation. Her fledgling event planning business, built on her mother's connections, withered and died. No one would hire her. Last I heard, she had to move back in with her parents. The final, satisfying piece of the puzzle came from an old college friend. He saw Clara at an airport during her 4-week break. She wasn't alone with her friend Isabel. She was with her ex-boyfriend, the one she'd always called a toxic mistake. She hadn't gone away to think. She'd gone away to test drive her old life, planning to fall back on the security I provided if it didn't work out. She tried to have it all and was left with nothing. My life, on the other hand, is quiet and my own. The $12,000 I lost still stings, but I consider it a freedom tax. I sold the couch she chose and bought one I actually like. My grandmother's ring is still in the bank. For a while it felt tainted, but my younger cousin recently got engaged. He and his fiancée are wonderful, but struggling financially. I've decided to give the ring to them, to let it become part of a new happy story built on a real partnership. It's the perfect way to reclaim a family heirloom by washing away the stain of entitlement with an act of genuine love. The revenge wasn't loud or explosive. It was the cold, methodical execution of consequences. She wanted no contact, so I gave her a world of silence. She and her family believed they could bully me into submission, but they weren't dealing with an emotional wreck. They were dealing with a project manager. And when a project is doomed, the only sane thing to do is write off the losses and move on. My next project is myself, and for the first time in a long time, the future looks clear.